good. Ah, lovely. All right, let's get started. So, I'm gonna start reading something called, it's called The Alchemy of Dark Emotions. It is the book itself, it's a chapter in a book that we're reading for my master's program. A super helpful book. Of course, I'm a spiritual alchemist, meaning that we learn how to transmute the energy into things that will support us in creation in our own life. And understanding the dark emotion, super important and critical in order to overcome maybe some of the historical traumas that are in the subconscious mind, or some of the traumas that we face, even in our day-to-day lives. Some of this there's different steps, and really the whole layout of this entire process would be a cool training to have in person with individuals, and something that I think I'm going to explore with my professors about how we can utilize this particular model and structure into a training course, a face-to-face training, and allowing people to go through the dark emotions. Dark emotions being fear, anger, all the stuff that doesn't feel good. And it's typically the stuff that we tend to steer away from, the things that we tend to want to run away from. I was listening to this music, and I don't know who was speaking, but they talked about it. They talked about how when we're in pain, we're trying to run from the pain. And that it's totally true. And I'm talking even about physical pain, because I literally had the worst physical pain the other day, with cramps, and I was trying to run. Couldn't relax into it. I was crawling all over the place trying to get away from it, but couldn't, right? Because it was within me. So the same with your dark emotions. Morning, mama. With the dark emotions is that we typically will try to run from them rather than allow ourselves to go through what they call the shadow side. Look at you. That's cute. Weird. There's a little ghost in the back. Look.
He's hiding here.
He's hiding under the curtains. Wow. That's cute. So in the dark emotions, the anxiety, the whatever it is, and learning how to be with it, not to try to get rid of it, but allow it to move through you. And I'm teaching myself this at this point, and I'm getting better at it, especially with the anxiety, which was something that I had been experiencing, which again it's a very hard energy to work with, especially when you're not familiar with it. If you're not familiar with a certain emotion, all of a sudden it starts to arise within you. It's like someone just smacking you on the side of the face, and you're like, whoa, what the hell was that? Like, who? It's like that, what's that movie, Shanghai Nights, or I don't know, it's with Jackie Chan and I think Chris Tucker, and the guy kicks him in the face, and he's like, which one of you kicked me? Like, he doesn't even know where it came from, right? That's kind of funny. But that's kind of how I feel. Like, I'm just getting, and I'm like, where am I getting this energy from? Where is it coming from, right? And it's arising within me. So it's coming from me, but there's a trigger in the subconscious mind or inherently in me that's causing that to rise above the surface for me to look at. And how do I be with it, right? How do I understand how to be with this particular feeling and sensation and what they call a dark emotion, and how do I move through that? How do I allow myself to move through it? Super, super hard. It's not been easy, and been really trying my hardest, and it's been pretty hard. Oh, good morning, Ellen Watts. Okay, good morning, Tony. Coffee time. Good morning, Betty. I see you guys on here. Sorry, I'm like having to look at my phone in a different way. Hard. Oh, good morning. Look, we hear it double time. I hope you guys are still on here. Cheers, Betty. I love you. Tony, I will be seeing you soon. But understanding that now in the shadow side and in the shadow emotions, of course, on the external, it's gonna look like probably trauma. And I will even tell you what happened. So, and I'm gonna speak candidly here, because because I have nothing to hide and I'm totally authentic, and it'll trigger the shit out of people typically when I talk about it. But I've been nailed to the cross and crucified, and people hate me, don't like me, and it's fine. It doesn't matter either way for me. But having your family members show up and get really upset and triggered by the things you say. Why? Because of the historical trauma. Things don't heal unless you actually look at the trauma around them. And that's the dark emotions. Good morning, Nicole. How are you? We get together. We get to get together. I love that. Get together. Together again. Anywho, yay, message me when. Okay, I will. I will message you when. And so, family members. So on my spirit and God, people have even asked me, who's this person who says all these things? Oh, it's my aunt. And we're related. And perhaps some of the triggers come from the fact that it has to do with family raising and programming. The thing about it is I'm not mad. I'm not mad at her. I'm not mad at the program. I'm not mad at the way that things actually arose or were showed up in my family. I'm not mad at my father. I'm not mad. But I talk about these things in order for people to relate. The trauma is something that I've dealt with over time. Does it still arise? Sure. Do I still see it in other people? Absolutely. But I don't let it control my life. So there's the difference. I work with the energy. And so in emotional alchemy, and I love that because I used to say spiritual alchemy, but emotional alchemy, that's really cool because now we can apply alchemy to emotional or mental alchemy. Or, now we can put the alchemic process within the different compartments. We say emotionally, spiritually, physically. How do we ingrain all of the alchemy into one system? So again, having to clear out the historical trauma that shows up. And it's okay. I'm fine. I'm fine with, these individuals or people saying what they say. It's okay. I've been called many names throughout my life. And that's fine. The perception that people bring to you, you can either accept it or not accept it. If you know who you are and you're clear about who you are, then what people have to say about you is not gonna, it has no merit for you. If you know who you are and you understand the intention of what you're doing, if you're clear about who you are, the path that you're on. So there was a little bit of a trigger yesterday when I had when my aunt was saying stuff, and it's because it's historical family trauma. And the trauma is something that I'm working through still. And there's things that still arise in me, and understanding that. And then when that energy arises within me, working through it. Perhaps the anxiety is something that came from when I was a child, or when I was even in the womb and my mom was under stressful circumstances from what happened, right? Because it was a toxic environment. She wasn't in an environment that nurtured good feelings. It was trauma. There was trauma there when I was even in the womb with my mother. And then coming out of it and then dealing with the trauma and the, just my father. He wasn't the easiest energy to be around. And in fact, no one wanted to be around him because he's very hard, and he knows that himself. Now, coming from that space and understanding that, and then having a aunt who comes and is trying, for what I believe in the subconscious mind is or from the programming, trying to re-trigger the trauma. But I can let that have power over me, or I could work through the dark emotions that arise within me. one of them being anxiety. So looking at that and saying, okay, as this arises within me, okay, how do I utilize that energy, transmute the energy, and then again step into creation? It's just you understanding how to use that energy, not run away from it, not push it down and pretend like it doesn't exist, but be with it. Completely be with that energy. And not try to mask it with medication, not try to, it's not easy. So the people that, again, the people that are experiencing anxiety and have anxiety all the time, I have so much compassion for you, because it's been so difficult to go through. I mean, it's a feeling and a sensation in the body that is not very pleasant. I just have never felt it before. Not that way. Like, I've had anxiety before a little bit, but not like that. I mean, in a way that it's like, I don't even know what's happening in my body. It's really interesting. And then learning to be with the energy and also ground through it. So part of what one of my coaches said, will allow it to move through you. And also remember that nothing's ever that serious. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's true. Life, if we saw life, there's a worldview that life is an illusion and it's a big drama. Anxiety is terrible. Yeah, Tony, it's like, oof. But I've never really felt it before now, which is interesting. And perhaps it's for a reason, and it's to understand how to support others, and at least have the compassion and the understanding of what it feels like, and know, like, I understand what people are going through now when it comes to that. Pretty terrible. It is. It's really hard. And I know my mom, so I don't know, Tony, if you feel anxiety like my mom, but my mom is like a ball of anxiety sometimes. And I think that I've perhaps taken that on because of her in some way. There's a lot going on. And then even in the world right now, there's a lot going on in the world, and it's just crazy. Everything is just all over the place, and I'm doing my best to try to stay afloat. And of course, support humanity the way I know how. Support myself the way I know how. But it's been difficult. And moving through the process, it's a joy when you come out on the other end and you start to understand, like, I can support others in trying to move through these emotions and hold them within them and be okay and learn how to swing it. I'm sorry I had to remove myself from the ones I loved. My body is a knot, hurts constantly. Oh, I know. And it's okay. Like, removing yourself is important. Like, that, sometimes that's the process. You've got to remove yourself too. And ask yourself, is this what I choose to experience or not experience? And that's important. That's something that we're talking about in our classes, having boundaries and understanding what the boundaries are and how the boundaries, you know, when we set up the boundaries, how those boundaries can support us in being able to process the experience. And for you, the boundary is, here's my boundary and I'm setting it, and that's what it is for me. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's totally fine. We get to set boundaries for ourselves. It's an important part of the process as well. Yes, and then the body hurting. I know that we've talked a lot, Tony, about what that is. And a lot of it has to do with some of the, you know, the stuff that you've gone through mentally, physically, emotionally in your life. And then how can you tap into that and support yourself through the process of it? Really, honestly, like, we can talk too when you have time, but what I'm learning in these courses already is invaluable. It's quite amazing. And just doing the readings and listening to the lectures and understand, it's giving me a deeper understanding of the human condition, how to support the human condition, how to walk people through these things that, like, even the body hurting and how that's tied to the emotion, and how we can do and pick up practices to support us through that trauma. So, you know, there you have it. And so working through these dark emotions has been it's been it's interesting. And I think to myself, where do I get to set my boundaries? I think those are things that I'm thinking about, right now. How do I set boundaries? How do you set your boundaries? What are your boundaries? And I talked about that the other day, but this is critical, especially if you're going through shadow emotions or dark emotions or whatever you want to call them. It's the shadow side because I think the process of going through it is so uncomfortable. But when we learn the energy and we understand it, it's okay. So a great example is this, and I've talked about this before, but like riding a roller coaster. People are afraid of heights, okay? And the people that are afraid of heights, right? So, they're like, well, I'm not going to get on that roller coaster because I see it just go tick, 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 and it's taking you high up and then it's coming down, right? And you're like, oh, I don't know if I should do that. So, but when you do it and you experience the sensation of what it's like to be on the roller coaster, like maybe you've never been on the roller coaster and all of a sudden you're like, I'm going to try it. And then this is your first time and you're going, well, it wasn't that bad. But you understood the sensation of falling. Then you say, okay, I'm going to do, I don't know, the swing where you go like this and you can feel yourself free flowing in circles. But the energy, the fear of looking down and the understanding of the sensation that arises within you is that you're allowing yourself to drop into the flow of it. You don't have a choice. So for me, it's like this. People are afraid of heights because it gives them a physical sensation when they do it. But if they understood the sensation of falling, if they allowed themselves to get on that high roller coaster and fall and see what the experience feels like in their body over and over and over, they become comfortable and one with that energy. Okay? Rather than fighting against it or being afraid to even go through it. It's like getting over your biggest fear. So for me, like, I already did that because I went on a roller coaster. I was afraid. I was afraid to get on a roller coaster when I was young. And finally I had a friend who's like, come on, you're going to get on with me. And I was like, oh my God, why am I doing this? And I did it and I loved it. And I was like, okay, do it again. And then before you know it, I'm like, okay, let's go skydiving. So I've gone skydiving. I've done high ropes. I've jumped off things. I mean, I did these things. And now when I see a big tall, or if I'm on the heights on a cliff, I'm not afraid of the heights because I understand the sensation that my body goes through when I'm falling. I know what that feels like. And I feel like I'm one with it. Now, that doesn't mean that some of the fear doesn't show up, because it does. Like, the biggest challenge for me was doing high ropes. Like, doing zip lining. And you have to, like, jump off the you have to jump off this ledge thing, right, to zip line, and it's high up, and for some reason I would be like trying to breathe through it. I knew what it felt like, but something inside me had that sensation and finally surrendered and let go. It's kind of the same thing. It's the same sensation when it comes to dealing with those hard shadow emotions. It's understanding that you can work with it and drop into the flow of it rather than trying to work against it. So you flow with it, but not easy, not an easy practice. And you find practices that work for you. Let's see, I've had to deal with anxiety and depression all my life. It's only been the last 6 months or so that I finally had less anxiety in my life. That's good, Nicole. That's really awesome because because I'm dealing with that opposite stuff, which is where I'm dealing with anxiety. Like, I've never had it. So I'm glad that you're working through it, and hopefully you're understanding that you can work with that energy. And I'm learning. Every day I'm learning, because it was showing up every single day, and I'm like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do with this? I don't even know what to do. And putting in place practices to support me through that. So what do you think, Nicole, was helping you through the actual anxiety in your life? Like, what have you done that's different? You can share if you want to. It's up to you. I'll wait a little bit and see. I think we got the early crew. Tony, you should come do Spirit and Coffee with me when you're in town. Um, so I think anxiety is a big one that everyone can relate to. And it's kind of funny because apparently I was calling forth the experience of anxiety because I have a whole magazine on anxiety. I should probably read it. I just remembered now that I have it. And read it and see what they have to say. Like, I know that part of it has to do with the sympathetic system and being fight, flight, freeze. A lot of what people are saying is like your projection into the future, worried about the future, and that your mind is stuck there, and that's where this, this feeling of anxiety is coming from. Okay, if I have time. Okay. And if not, then of course we just visit because, of course, you're going to come visit, and of course I'm going to see you when you come. Big hug. I love you. So I was waiting for Nicole to see if she was going to respond, and so she hasn't. Okay, so I'm glad that you're working through it, Nicole. And Tony, perhaps when you come, even if we don't do that, we can just discuss and sit down and have a chat, and I'll show you some of the stuff that I'm doing with my master's program that might support you a little bit more, and all that. So hopefully you have time to come visit. I think you will. I know you will. I'm going to hold you to that. Okay. So there you have it. Dealing through dark emotions. I think I'm gonna receive that book soon, and let's see what the rest of the book is. I think it might be the next book that I want to read on Spirit and Coffee and go through. So I feel like it's powerful, and I think a training around this particular process would be powerful, and probably super necessary at this point in time. So there you have it. So I love you guys. Have a great day. Oh, sorry I missed your question. Had to step away briefly. Oh, I was just asking how you were dealing with the anxiety. Like, what did you do to support you through the anxiety? That was the question. So if you're feeling better about it, what is it that supported you through it? And that's just because when you share, it supports others in other practices, right? I only know from my tiny little scope of understanding, which is weensy weensy. Very tiny. Like, you guys have the keys to other stuff that I don't. And so if you've already experienced it your whole life and now you're moving out of it, even help me. I mean, it could even help me with my understanding, a deeper understanding of what that is. And then, perhaps support people in the transition if they are continuing to experience anxiety. Like, how can we support people through that experience, but not to say it's gone. I think what helped was faith, meditation, and being real, and made me at peace. Awesome. I love that authenticity, right? And then the faith that God has you. And I think that's important. I like the word faith because it implies that we don't need to worry about the future because we know that God is going to support us through it. And I think that's beautiful. I think it's a beautiful way to end this, is have faith that God's going to bring us through. Faith is a critical part of, our spiritual practices. Without faith, what do you got, really? So having faith in that everything is supposed to work out the way it's going to work out. And actually, that actually really helped me. See, sometimes it's the simple things we forget. Like, yeah, I have faith, but am I focusing on my faith? Maybe not. And if I'm projecting or worried about the future, maybe it's because I'm not allowing God to support the faith, or I'm not allowing myself to have faith in God for the future. So there you go. Faith. I like that. Have faith that God has you and that your future is all taken care of because God loves you. Okay, there you go. Perfect message to end. Go out and have faith. So have a fantastic, fabulous, phenomenal, funky, fun Friday. And I will see you guys on Monday. So cheers. Have a good day. Love you, mean it. Bye.